Welcome to Once a Nurse, Always a Nurse. I'm actually Leanne Meyer, and I guess we're calling this Once a Nurse the original, just to differentiate it from the first 5 years that I did with Once a Nurse, Always a Nurse. So I am so very excited to do this particular podcast. I often talk about nurses. Those are nurses who nurses think are fantastic. And my guest today is a microbiologist. And I actually met him in 2020 when he was working on some other things with COVID, actually. And I was so impressed with him because what he did was his daughter was a social worker in a nursing home, and they had been hit hard by COVID. Patients from the hospital, that was in 2020, so they were being transferred as fast as possible to the nursing home, and it was a disaster. They were not ready. On his own and on behalf of his daughter, he went into the nursing home and tested everything. And from that, was able to come back and say, this is what you need to do in order to protect your patients, your staff, etc. Just that kind of see a need and go ahead and do it, whether you're getting paid or not, is one of the things that I love about my guest. So I'm just going to go right to introducing him. Scott, so happy to see you. Scott Smith is a Chief Sustainability Officer at Echo Integrated Technologies Incorporated.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
It is? Okay,
Yeah.
that was from your LinkedIn.
No, I'm CEO of US Biosolutions, and I'm not a microbiologist.
Oh, okay. So I'm wrong on everything.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say.
Me.
You really need to be introduced as inventor and CEO at US Biosolutions.
This is going to be live. So what we're doing is going to go forward. So I'm just going to turn this over to you to introduce yourself because you will do that much better than I am. And so Scott, one of the things that I'm very pleased to know about Scott right now is he has been involved in East Palestine. And that it's been in the news since February 4th and certainly has been a worry for many people. It's a small town. And Scott, again, just went in there and started testing where other people were not or were doing it ineffectively. So I just want to turn this over to Scott. Introduce yourself. Tell us what you'd like us to know. And we'll go from there.
Leanne, really, thanks for having me. It's really blessing, and appreciate having the opportunity to educate you and all the nurses out there. And it's hard to believe. I feel like we've become family since, we haven't even met in person yet since COVID and all our talking 2 years in social media. So it's really special to be able to speak to you about all this.
I feel the same way. So go ahead and tell me what you'd like us to know about you and your background.
Well, we live in times where I say, society in many ways has derailed, and I use the word derail because of the derailment in East Palestine. And I think I have some good news here because East Palestine, I think when history books are written, is going to be the turning point that ties all of my life's work together and how people can come together across all differences, no matter what it is, to unite to make this a better world, sustainable for your health, sustainable for the environment. And there's just something different that's happening about this. And to understand that, I'm just going to give you some context and the background that I've been through. About 17 years ago, my life was wiped out in oil-contaminated floodwaters. Insurance company declares the manufacturing space in a basement. They don't pay millions of dollars. I liquidated my life, everything, borrowed everything I could against all assets I own, recovered. In the disaster, I've walked the streets, 100 employees. They didn't know how they're going to feed their babies, get baby formula, or anything. I just did what came naturally, secured healthcare benefits for them. I mean, and compensation for them to make sure that they could take care of their families. And We rebuilt everything up and we made it. We refused to give up. There's something very important. I want to go there, though. We had attention from, at the time, Governor Pataki and Senator Chuck Schumer. And I have to say, that time, Republicans, Democrats, we all sat in the same room. We all worked together for the benefit of the community. And I am optimistic we can get back there, because these events should not be about
Partisan.
politics.
Exactly.
It's about a fellow human being and helping your fellow human being. And it's that simple.
90% of our nurses absolutely agree with you.
And, you know, what I didn't know at the time, it was Senator Schumer that nominated me for the Phoenix Award. I didn't know it existed for the Small Business Administration, because I put everything I own. I mean, I was born stubborn and passionate, so I don't give up easily when a lot of other people walked away, but I would not give up. And then in the process of recovering from that flood, I realized that everything I thought about water and contamination in water testing was seriously flawed, and also remediation and removing oil and water. And that gets into the single-use plastic white booms that absorb water and not oil. But what I realized is, when you're taking a water sample, and I know you're not supposed to use your hands being videoed, but I'm going to show this. When you take a water sample,
It's okay.
when you take a water sample from a river, from a lake, it only tells you the contamination in this jar. And why? Although some media doesn't understand equilibrium or steady state, that's why I really like talking to nurses and how technical they are, because they're on the front lines every day saving lives. But the water and equilibrium, water and contamination are never in equilibrium or a steady state. So I realized in the corner of my factory, there was a medical foam at the time. The U.S. military had gone to the FDA and got approval to use it as a medical device with a 510K. And the reason this material was approved is that it did not react with the lotion. So, for example, if there's a sarin gas attack or a phosgene gas attack, our troops would rip open the pouch, and in this material, this high surface area open cell foam, was the lotion. You scrub your skin and you live. It neutralizes it. And this is the only material in the world approved. Why? Because it was nonpolar and repelled water. And little did I know.
You're talking about magnetic polarization.
Yeah, well, it was nonpolar. It didn't have a charge, positive or negative. Right. And because whether with these medical lotions, they have an ionic charge, and if the carrier or the device has an ionic charge, you can cancel each other out. And I did not know at the time how novel this foam I created was, because it's the only open cell foam in the world that does not have toxic chemical plasticizers added. And it also does not have an ionic charge, which is the reason it's the only material able to carry this medical lotion. So the medical lotion stays active and neutralizes the toxins. As you know, little did I know that 20 years later, for the same reason the U.S. military approved the medical foam and the FDA approved it, that this same material could be used when COVID and other, pathogen threats, because it can get infused with a disinfectant and does not deactivate the disinfectant. Now, why is that? Disinfectants have a positive ionic charge. Paper towels have a negative ionic charge. Cotton rags have a negative ionic charge. When those come together, that cancels everything out. So think about what happened with COVID. We crank up all the paper towels, all the trees, all the energy, all the needless energy, needless filling of landfills, when these disinfectants are being applied and doing nothing because they're deactivated. And this ties into a larger issue with all the sustainability, and you think about all these single use, whether plastics, paper towels, needlessly filling landfills. And we're talking about sustainability more and more in this country.
Yeah, has to be. Has to be. And I really hope nurses are leading the way.
And-
So
and-
you,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I actually, as a result of all this, I trademarked sustainability without compromise. That means if you're really committed to a more sustainable planet, and you can actually create technologies that, number one, preserve and protect human life, and equally, in the same number one spot, protect and preserve the environment. And although without compromise is, I've faced a lot of pushback. So sustainability without compromise means putting the long-term focus on human health and the environment. And sometimes that's sacrificing short-term profits.
yes. Yes, for the health of the people. What a novel idea. You had mentioned you have a video. Is this a good place to show it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Could you give just a little lead into it?
Yeah, I want to, one of the things I'm most proud of I'm able to do is I was, throughout my work, the United Association of Plumbers, Pipe Fitters, and Service Techs, called the UA. If you Google, United Association Plumbers, Pipe Fitters, you'll see their website, 380,000 people. They've been around for 120 years. They've never really integrated a technology into their testing program, and they integrated the technology, my open cell foam technology, the same material for oil spills and everything else, as part of a program for early stage detection of Legionella and other pathogens in cooling towers. And you will see in this video the open cell foam device that's part of their program that is helping preserve and protect human life every day.
Okay. And before we start it, I just want to mention that the open cell foam is sort of like, it's a product that is kind of folded on itself, and all of the little holes in it. If you open the whole material out, I think at one point you said it could be the size of a tennis court. And so
That's
you have
correct.
a relatively small handheld, looks like a sponge, but it is so far beyond a sponge because it can hold phenomenal amounts of crud, basically. So let's go ahead and show the video.
To address America's water problems and to help find solutions, the UA created a pilot water quality program in 8 cities. The findings revealed the problems were in all water systems. It also revealed how the UA could be part of the solution. Disneyland shuts down bacteria-contaminated cooling towers after cases of Legionnaire's disease are discovered in people who had visited the park. 13 people died, and at least 61 residents and staff are sickened when Legionellosis is detected in a veteran's home in Illinois.
The test is recommended 5 to 20 minutes. Today we'll be doing it for 5 minutes, a 5-minute swab of the tower. What we want to do is we want to get this down in the tower, under the water, and we just want to move it all around.
It's a definite need out there. Water quality is very, very important throughout the country, and it's starting to be mandated by Medicare and Medicaid, and we feel as though we want to be on the front lines of that.
Currently, we're doing inspection, testing, and maintenance on these buildings anyway. We have a value add to do something that nobody else is doing. So it really gives us an opportunity to jump out in front and take that market.
The water quality issue cuts across all crafts because sprinkler lines can infect somebody, cooling towers can affect somebody. So any UA craftsman, the service tech, the pipe fitter, the sprinkler fitter needs to be involved so that we can map systems, audit systems, monitor systems. And also the most important thing is to verify the work that's been done and then validate.
When I heard that it was going to be a more proactive approach, that's really exciting to me because that means that we can not only make sure that we're taking good care of a client's facilities, but we can also protect people better than we have in the past and prevent many infectious disease type situations and maybe even save lives.
We have the education, we have the manpower to be able to do it, and we've always lived by that motto that we protect the health of the nation, so we feel it's our responsibility.
The program will touch all sectors of the industry, but most important, it's a step in the right direction to solve America's water crisis and to keep people safe.
How to kill all mosquitoes.
you can cut it there. That is a really good way to kind of see the importance. You got a little bit of a view of the open cell
The
technology.
sampling device. In that case, it's a sampling device.
Thank you. So one of the things that's so important is that this is the kind of stuff that is in hospitals, clinics, all over, nursing homes, all over the place, and people don't even know how to test it. So, tell us about this. Why is this important to know, and where is it going?
Well, let me tell you, not only important is with this whole UA experience, we talk about society being a little bit off the rails right now, but this is very important. It goes back to when I worked with Senator Schumer and Democrat, Republican George Pataki in that disaster recovery. The UA, 358,000 members, all walks of life, committed to long-term training. And for me to be a small part of their water quality problem, for me to be a small part of the water quality program, dealing with all the water problems, that's how you get to it. And you don't want to wait around for the remediation. And why this is much bigger than just Legionella. This is an example of how people can work together with the goal of preventing human infection. Now, if we prevent human infection, then there's no need for, ill health and all the pharmaceuticals and everything else. So what this program does is it detects Legionella and a variety of all these other pathogens, some of which I can't pronounce, but I can say Pseudomonas aeruginosa. That's why I'm not a microbiologist. I would probably fail if I had to take it academically because I can never figure out how to say most of these pathogens. So,
well, you fooled me.
But the whole key is about when you think about sustainability without compromise on people's health. Well, the best way to have sustainable health is prevent the infection. So if we detect these pathogens, including Legionella, MRSA, C. diff, all these pathogens that are bacteria resistant and kill about 500,000 people in hospital-acquired infections a year, we prevent human infection by detecting at a low level before they become infectious. That applies to every aspect of all the work I'm doing with US Biosolutions and all the different businesses I'm involved in.
Right. And so does that bring us back to, excuse me, to the work that you're doing currently in East Palestine?
Yeah, East Palestine is, I've been in over 60 disasters. And the thing that's different about East Palestine is after 60 disasters, the media that has been covering it, the investigative journalists, they are asking questions, wanting to get educated. And I have never had, for example, Dr. Beatrice Gullum reached out to me, and I have an expert team, including her, and there's 4 other people. Unfortunately, I can't release their names right now. You'd recognize them and recognize their institutions because they're worried about losing their jobs and livelihood. But I can tell you right now, they have over 150 years of experience. And now I'm taking the testing that I developed to test for the full spectrum in the water column on filters.
Can you say where Dr. Gullum is located?
Yeah, Dr. Gullum, yeah. On Dr. Gullum, we issued a press release just last Thursday. Right. So Dr. Beatrice Gullum people can reach out to her. And she originally reached out to me, and then we formed a collaboration where she's going to start doing blood testing. She got approval from her institution, University of California at San Diego, to move forward. So the key is what I say to people, no matter what the contamination event is, whether it's East Palestine or anything else, if you can get information, there's no need to panic, because people, they know when the government isn't playing it straight to them, whether it's a state or local agency or the railroad. If you can get them the information of what is really in the water, in the air, and in the soil, they can take that information, work with their doctor, and in Dr. Gullum's case, she can then start doing blood testing and cross-reference. And I have an expression, the older I get in life, Leanne, the simpler things are. And I can't believe it just kind of came out of me one day. You can't find what you don't look for. Exactly. Well, it really is that simple. If you're not looking in the water column, for example, the creek beds and the sediment, this applies way beyond East Palestine, because this could be coming to your community next. And a fish doesn't live in the water for a split second. A child doesn't swim or bathe. And then going back to this instant grab sample, that's why we're testing the sediment in the water column above the bottom beneath the surface. That's where life is. So that's what we're able to do with this testing. But in all of the 60 disasters, I've never had a turning point. This goes hand in hand with my work with the United Association of Plumbers, Pipe Fitters, and HVAC techs, because this collaboration with a doctor of Dr. Beatrice Gullum's status reaching out to me, along with scientists that have a combined 150 years of experience in dioxins and contamination, is amazing. And let me tell you about Dr. Gullum that I did not understand until she reached out to me and I met her. In the Gulf War, there were burn pits with our veterans. Yeah. Our government was dismissing them, saying mass psychosis, you're making it up. She was instrumental in figuring out what is called synergistic toxicity. That's how all these chemicals combine, because the health, this is why I really, really love, the nurses, because they can understand what I'm saying and help educate the public. So it's about cumulative dose. So you got all these doses accumulating, and the standards for health are based on a singular exposure to a singular chemical, like benzene or something else. Well, when benzene combines with dioxins and all these other chemicals, for every 10 chemicals, you have 1,000 different combinations. So the point is, Dr. Gullum was instrumental on cumulative dose and synergistic toxicity, meaning how all these things combine. And until East Palestine, there were a few other events in the U.S., but there's never been a derailment with an explosion and then a subsequent burn of vinyl chloride. Okay. So you kind of have here, people in East Palestine are experiencing what many of our vets went through in the Gulf War and the burn pits.
Right. I was kind of interested too, because you pretty much went on your own, right, to East Palestine.
Yeah.
So you show up in full garb, protective garb. You're going into the creek and testing at all these different levels. And the people that have been sent by, was it EPA that were sent first, or was it from the railroad?
But the railroad hires, people to do testing for them.
So they came in with pretty much nothing, maybe gloves or something on. They're looking at you and saying, basically, what do you know that we don't know? So we're in here. You clearly feel like there's more danger here than we know about. So you started talking with them and with the citizens, right, of the area, and they realized you were somebody that they could trust.
Yeah, well, yes, and thank you for that. And I want to explain more context. So, I'm CEO, founder, and majority owner of US Biosolutions. I also have a company I'm CEO Aquaflex of, and there's a third company called Eco Environmental Technologies, where I'm Chief Sustainability Officer. And this is a really important point I'm going to make before I answer that entirely, is that I sold a couple of my patents to Eco Integrated Technologies last year, and then they wanted me to come on as Chief Sustainability Officer, and I still have all these. So I didn't sell my company, I sold a portion of the patents. And they wanted me to join. And so as part of my employment agreement, I said, hey, I want to set a new standard for corporations. I want to be able to continue my work. And I want to be able to have a budget to help people. No strings, nothing, no expectations, just to do the right thing. Because 17 years ago, I was wiped out in oil and chemical. I walked the streets. And if I can help communities not have to go through what I went through, that is my passion. So they agreed to do that. So they sent me there as part of, and we've now approaching about 70,000 in testing and expenses for the community. And that's what we do. What I say is, if you really mean what you say in a corporation, we want to set a new example for a good corporate citizen in doing the right thing in helping communities. Because if you don't have sustainable health in a community, does anything else really matter as to sustainability? I don't think so. And I say, not only is this the right thing to do for more corporations, it's also good for your soul. It's the, to see this community coming together is a great thing. So now to the creeks.
Hang on a second. I just want to point out that what you're saying is exactly what nurses are dealing with right now is trying to go back to their organizations, their hospitals, their clinics, nursing homes, wherever it is, and say, this is not okay, the way that we have been dealing with just trying to make money off of disease without really making very much effort on trying to keep people well way before all of these chronic diseases start to become a major problem for them. So nurses are at the point where they're walking with their feet away from this morally abusive situation. And so what you're talking about, with the ecosystem and sustainability, that is exactly what we need to have nurses doing in healthcare. So go ahead.
I want to address a very specific point. So the respirator and the gear and
Yes.
the experts I have around me. Here is the unfortunate thing in 60 disasters I've been through, starting with my own. Let there be no doubt the public relations people and government relations at the responsible parties are calling all the shots. And I am disappointed in our government after COVID and all the mask mandates, their workers in the field and the community. The reason you don't see the other people wearing respirators and gear that I did is for the public relations. So the public relations people calling all the shots has to stop, because they're putting the contract workers in the creek, the community safe, and respirators should have been recommended. And now think about that. We shut down an entire economy for people's health and mask mandates. But when it comes to a large corporation, and you've got the EPA, the CDC, and everyone else involved, they can't do a mandate to protect the workers cleaning up the creek and the community, because that's how powerful the corporate interests are. And that's why I am so optimistic that we can put this country back on the rails with people working together. And the reason why is the tipping point, the investigative journalists, the experts reaching out to me, the community. We just did a community press conference this week, and I would encourage all interested nurses to please go to a link to that community press conference. I will provide a link, and if you can put that in here, I think every nurse needs to see what is going on, because that community could be their community, and they could be treating people in a community someday. So that's really, really, really important. But again, back to why I'm optimistic is we're going to see changes out of East Palestine. It's going to be a tipping point where the community can come together with scientists that care, again, for sustainability without compromise. The responsible parties should not have the undue influence over the government. The government should be serving the constituents.
Yes.
And I want to say too, Leanne, from before, sometimes you have to make people feel a little uncomfortable to improve the world and make it a better place. But what I'm doing may make some government officials uncomfortable and responsible parties, but that's okay. But I'd encourage everybody to have these dialogues. It's not a personal attack. I've been personally a bit. You have to make people feel uncomfortable in a professional, respectful way. And that's what we're trying to achieve here, and why this is getting so much attention.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, it seems like this is really a turning point for the whole country, because what has happened over time is, with all of the focus on making money, even with inventing things, it's always about who's going to pharma, some of the other places where they have just hiked up costs to individuals to such an incredible degree that it is beyond the ability of the normal human being to be able to get access to those things, even insulin. So nurses are very aware that they don't want to be a part of this kind of work. But what they're seeing is, oh my gosh, there's so many areas that are impacted by this kind of thinking, that, how much money you're making is far more important than the damage that might be done. And so by you making this kind of inroads here, it starts people thinking that perhaps we're not going the right direction. Perhaps there are things we can do in many areas of our country that go back to what is the bottom level importance, and that has to be human beings. And that's what you're doing, and you're influencing us. So I was going to talk a little bit about Power Up Nursing. Was there something else you want to share, especially with East Palestine?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be talking in my presentation at the Power Up Nursing Conference about East Palestine. And I'm going to be talking publicly, too, for the first time about a wound care patent and disinfectant, the non-toxic chemical-free disinfectant that I'm working on that has a direct impact on not only patients, but exposures to nurses every day. There's just been a recent paper, March 24th, 2023, peer review that come out about the quat chemicals and how they don't work and the toxicities post-COVID. And I'm very concerned about nurses, doctors, all, think about the janitors and the people doing the cleaning services. They are being needlessly exposed to toxic chemicals that don't even kill the pathogens. And that's where the big corporate interest, this is where an opportunity at Power Up Nursing will be the first time I'm going to really address all this. And that's where all the nurses coming together because of your program, Leanne, are going to be able to make a big difference because these chemicals are cancer causing in these disinfectants. And that's a big deal. And I want to add one other very important thing, sustainability without compromise. And I'm going to tell you, I live and breathe that. So yeah, I've invented some things, but testing, I say, for example, the algae patents I have, my goal is to eliminate the need for my products to remediate. Because if the technology I've developed to detect at early stage, and people will say, well, that's why, I'm willing to sacrifice all that revenue, because if you care about sustainability, you should want to fix the problem, even if those consequences sacrifice revenue. And I have gone through a horrific experience in 2012 and being, I always kept my technology and my patents and licensed them, thank God, because I was thrown out of a company I was involved in because I refused to go along with maximizing revenue from the contamination. I wanted to prevent it. So when I say I'm pretty stubborn, I am. And that's where sustainability without compromise comes from.
Yeah. And that's what we want. And that's what nurses want too, is they want to be able to do their job, helping patients with all of the obstacles that have been put in their way, taken away. They want to be able to take the time with patients, be able to talk with them, know what's going on, and do the best possible thing for that person. So being able to hear, you talking about this, one thing I'm wondering about is there a place for nurses in what you're seeing coming forward? Many nurses are trying to figure out what is my future, and many nurses coming to this conference, that's why they're coming there, is because they don't know what their options are. All they know is working at the bedside or, doing the work, whatever they've been doing, and probably in very toxic, emotional kinds of situations. Now they're ready to say, okay, I can't stay here. I'm clear about that. I need to go somewhere. How would this be something that they could consider?
That's a great question. And it's an opportunity, like I talked about the union and my work in East Palestine. It's an opportunity for us to work together and bring nurses together, whether it's their local union, I don't know how exactly that works, or through educational platforms and continuing education like you're working on, Leanne, because nurses are exposed to a lot of stress every day, dealing with very sick people passing away and so on. We owe it as a society to our all healthcare workers and, nurses, and even the people doing the cleaning there to bombard them with cancer causing chemicals that don't even really work because,
it's been done this way. I can remember when quats came in, and what they did tell us is do not use these with your bare hands. But that was about it. So we just used whatever vinyl or whatever gloves.
They're in all the wipes. I've got news for you, that study. They're in all the wipes, and education. And again, the corporate interest, think about the billions of dollars at stake for a lot of corporate interest. But, you know, and I'm trying to educate these corporate interests, but you post sustainability on your website and how much you care about people. Well, if you mean what you say, let's work together.
Yeah. And so then that brings in, who are those people that truly know what is the direction we want to go, and not those that have been either through college, through work environments, have been said, you'll lose your job if you don't, use the standard line. Corporations need to be hiring people who will push back and say, I'm the expert. You need to be listening to me. And that's what nurses are saying, is they have expertise in ways that almost nobody else in healthcare has. And I say nurses because that's my focus, and that's, where I am most focused. But usually when I'm saying that, I really mean everyone who has any connection to healthcare. We all have the same issues. We all have the same challenges. I just chose to focus on the citizens of nursing. So anything that you would really want to leave the podcast with, leave these nurses with, how can you encourage nurses to really come and hear what you have to say?
Two things. First of all, if you're a nurse out there, understand the power and strength and numbers and people coming together, hence East Palestine. Nurses are on those front lines every day. By coming together and being leaders in education, they can directly preserve and protect many, many lives, starting with their own. And number two, with the stresses, I can speak, I've decided to speak personally about, I've had my own, when I was thrown out of a company, it devastated me, my own mental health issues and depression. I'm probably lucky I'm even talking to you. But I made the decision to talk about some of these difficult things. Good. And I think being on front lines, mental health issues are real. Don't be ashamed to talk about it. Don't be ashamed to get help. And we need to do a better job. And I think nurses can really help with that too.
And nurses are notoriously bad about seeking help for themselves. They're busy. They've got families. They're doing the same kind of help in their communities and their families and their, everything that they're connected to. And so they just feel like they don't have time to take that time and go, and I'm fine. I'm fine. Maybe I'm not sleeping. Maybe I'm using alcohol and drugs to just get through the days, but I'm really fine. And we convince ourselves of that. I'm one of them that has done that for a long time. It's time we need to turn that around. We need to educate nurses too, so that they can appropriately educate patients. So, Scott, I am so happy to have you on the show again. And
that's good to be here.
To be able to just talk like this, it's wonderful. And I can't wait to, we haven't met. So
right.
In Orlando, we are officially going to meet.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited for that. So thank you so much for coming. I truly admire you at a deepest level. And because of some of the things you said and many of the things you haven't told here, that you will always go for what is the best thing for human beings. And that's what nurses want to do too. So I will see you in Orlando. I will see the nurses who are out there in Orlando. I hope you'll register soon. And there's many more people like Scott that are going to be there. And we're going to have such an opportunity to be able to talk about what do we really want for the future of healthcare and the future of health in the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you.